A lot of dog owners think that dog training is about making the dog follow, but if that's all you're doing, you're missing half the process. Because while you're guiding the dog is giving you constant feedback in return about how clear you are, how fair you are, and about how effective your training actually is. And if you're not looking for that feedback, if you're not letting the dog shape the process a little, you're not really training, you're just forcing your pattern. Great training happens in the middle. You give direction, but also receive information and adjust accordingly. You move the dog, but the dog also moves you. You correct, reward, and structure, but at the same time you're adjusting, learning, and responding. That's being a great owner or trainer. And in this video we're going to break down exactly how the dog shapes your behavior and why finding the balance between your guidance and your dog's feedback is what makes the difference between training that sticks and training that cracks. If we stop for a moment and take a step back, really step back to look at how we used to train our dogs compared to how we're training them right now, we will often see a very different picture. The way we give commands, the way we structure sessions, the way we respond to failure or resistance, it all shifts over time. And that shift didn't just come from reading books, watching videos, or refining theory. It came from the dog, from living with him, training with him, and everything that comes with it. Whether we realize it or not, the dog was shaping the process just as much as we were. Because dogs are not passive recipients of training, they are active participants in it. They give us constant feedback, and if we are doing our job well, some of that feedback ends up shaping us, as it should. This feedback comes in many forms, some clear, some subtle. It's the way a dog consistently disengages at a certain point in the session, the way he stiffens before a cue, the way he offers alternatives to what you asked. It's in the repetition of small resistances that point to a larger misunderstanding, and if you're not paying attention, you will miss it. Or worse, you will punish it as non-compliance when the dog was actually telling you how to fix his behavior in that situation. But when you are paying attention, you start to see how much of your own training style has evolved based on the dog in front of you. You speak a little differently, you hold pressure a little longer or release it a little sooner. You pace the learning differently. All of that came from the dog teaching you how to work with him, and while you are still leading the process, you are also being led. That's not something to avoid, that's a sign of awareness, because dogs aren't machines. Their personalities, histories, and temperaments don't just influence how they respond to your training, they also help you define how to manage the process. A sensitive dog makes you softer and sharper at the same time. A more assertive dog pushes you to be clearer and more grounded. A dog that shuts down easily forces you to refine pressure, timing, and clarity, until every movement you make has a purpose. The dog gives you that. The dog creates it if you let him, and that's what it means to work with a living, thinking creature. But here is where it gets important. Letting the dog shape you doesn't mean giving up structure or making everything optional. It means making decisions based not on what you prefer, but on what works best for the dog's internal and external state. In training, we should never default to what feels good or easy or familiar from our perspective. We need to ask what actually brings the dog clarity, confidence, and behavioral stability. And sometimes that means using tools or techniques we don't enjoy. Sometimes it means applying a fair correction because that correction delivered with timing and purpose interrupts uncertainty and gives the dog a clearer path forward. It says, not that, try again. It gives the dog permission to let go of the wrong answer and search for the right one. And done properly, it doesn't break him, it supports him. It takes pressure off rather than peeling it on. Because a well-timed correction isn't about punishment, it's about removing noise. It's about protecting the integrity of the communication, and that's often what gives the dog the most peace. But of course, many dogs will push. They will test your boundaries, not to manipulate you, but to find out where the edges are. That's how they learn. That's how they calibrate themselves into the system you have built for them. And sometimes they will make you reconsider what you thought those edges were. You will think a boundary was necessary until the dog shows you that it's not. You will think a rule is fixed until the dog proves that your flexibility can actually bring better results. And while this doesn't mean that you fold every time the dog pushes, it does mean that the process has to breathe. You have to let the dog speak back. You have to adapt where it makes sense, because the more you adapt to the individual in front of you, the more of that dog's potential you're going to see. You're not softening, you're adjusting. You're building a system that fits the dog without giving up the parts of it that hold everything together. And as we go deeper into this relationship, we realize something else. Dogs are incredibly good at reading energy. Not in some mystical abstract way, but in the way they watch and feel and respond to us in real time. They learn what pressure feels like. They learn what tension looks like before it even leaves your body. They learn how fast you give up, how long you hold a cue, when you are unsure and when you are distracted. And they learn how to use that information not through planning or manipulation, but through sheer pattern recognition. Just like we shape their drive, their focus, their motivation, they shape our behavior in return. If they hesitate and we soften, that moment gets recorded. If they disengage and we back off, that too becomes part of the pattern. And unless we're paying close attention, those moments start to define the flow of the session. That's why the work has to go both ways. We influence the state of the dog to some degree, but at the same time, we also have to be honest about how much the dog is influencing ours. That's the challenge here. The real challenge is to find the right balance. The balance between what you want and what the dog wants. Between pushing the dog forward and allowing him space to guide the process. Between rewarding and correcting with purpose while adapting with intelligence. And maybe most importantly, it's the foundation of respect. You don't build a strong dog by ignoring what he shows you. You build it by reading it clearly, by responding with leadership that listens, by building a structure that adapts just enough to make sense. That's how dogs open up. That's how they offer more than what you asked for, because they know they're being heard. And when that happens, when the process stops being one-sided and starts becoming a conversation, you start to see what real training looks like. You're not just teaching the dog, you're learning to lead him better because he is showing you how. Now, if this gave you something to think about and you would like to engage in more content like this, make sure to subscribe so that I can catch you in the next one.